Thank you very much for staying on the marketplace. Welcome back. And the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has disclosed that President Akufo-Addo will in a few weeks announce formation of the Financial Stability Council. The council is expected to bring together all regulatory bodies in the financial sector to enhance smooth flow of information to deliver on their mandate. The Vice President made the disclosure in a keynote address at the 22nd National Banking Conference under the theme, Building Confidence in the Banking Industry in Ghana.
According to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, lack of information flow among regulators in the financial sector will end after the inauguration of the Council. The Council will have representatives from the Bank of Ghana, Securities and Exchange Commission, and the National Insurance Commission, among others. Whilst Government Fiscal Council will take control of the spending in the public sector, the Financial Stability Council will be an independent body to engage private sector businesses on the various regulations of the operating environment.
And the Financial Stability Council, where you will have the regulators come together, because one of the problems that we have is regulatory arbitrage. So, you know, the banks are there, and then the insurance companies are there, and then the Securities and Exchange Commission is there. And sometimes very unscrupulous enterprises take advantage of the fact that these enterprises, the regulators are not talking. They are not sharing information. And so someone will say, oh, I'm not regulated by the Bank of Ghana, but I'm not regulated by the SEC either. And I'm not regulated by the insurance company, but I'm offering financial services. And you have these issues. But the President will announce the Financial Stability Council, as I said, in the next few weeks. And we will bring all the major regulators in the financial sector together.
Vice President also used the opportunity to assure the general public that the Depositors Act will ensure that no depositor loses their funds in the course of the banking reforms.
While you may think that some practices are profitable, they may not endear you to depositors who, believe it or not, are always watching your corporate behavior. Will the introduction of deposit insurance boost confidence in the banking system? Yes, but only to the extent that depositors believe the regulator is still on top of its game and not shirking its responsibilities to check against adverse selection and moral hazard behavior. Through the implementation of the Deposit Insurance Act, banks will now be able to offer a buffer to meet their depositors' obligations when they fall due, particularly in the unlikely event of liquidation.
This year's banking conference highlights key points for restoring confidence in the banking industry. Reverend Patricia Support is the president of the Chartered Institutes of Bankers.
The future of banking is very great, and I believe that, customers will have a lot more confidence in the banking sector, because what the central bank has sought to do is to clean or sanitize the banking industry. So the number of banks that will meet the criteria obviously will fall in line with the Act 930, 2016, and ensure that, they adhere to the to corporate governance and meets all the policies and the directives of the central bank.
Top of the agenda is how the banks can proactively manage their assets and liabilities properly to achieve a net position to pay depositors.
Establishing the Fiscal Council alone would not be enough to check budget overruns. That's the advice coming from former Finance Minister Seth Terkper as government gets ready to establish the council to check over expenditure. He was speaking at Joy FM's Thought Leadership event on the performance of government so far. This morning, this report.
The former minister was speaking on the 2019 budget at the Accra Speaks Forum. According to him, even though Fiscal Council is good, it would not be enough to help put the necessary checks in place when it comes to checking expenditure. And is currently working to exit the IMF program by end of April 2019. But Seth Terkper is warning that the necessary structures should be instituted to support fiscal discipline post the IMF program. On the current debate about having the tax identification number before one can access some essential services, Seth Terkper was of the view that government should rather look at using the national ID to achieve the objective.
When you talk about expanding the tax base, You don't just expand it with, the woman by the roadside. You expand it by bringing sectors of the economy that are growing into the tax net. We cannot exclude services, which is the largest sector of GDP, from the tax base. And so you have to bring it. You can give all the concessions to services, to financial services, to all services, Okay. Yes, that has been taken. But the 17.5% is intact. It is what has been done to the VAT structure that is creating a problem. It has resulted in an increase. I am not saying it. Businesses are saying it by increasing prices. And some of them issue statements to that effect.
He was also of the view that the country's new middle income status and rebasing of the economy meant that a lot has to be done to improve revenue collection.
The second phase of the mobile money interoperability platform was launched in Accra this morning. Speaking at the launching ceremony, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia said all civil servants will be paid through the platform by the first quarter of next year.
Switch platforms to the Ghana Link platforms means that customers can conveniently move funds across all wallets. All the three platforms, bank accounts, mobile wallets, and the e-switch payment systems. And what is so unique is that all these three platforms, the clearing is done against central bank funds. This should make us more efficient and enable us to accomplish more within the time available to us. All these important initiatives are in sync with other programs that the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government has taken to quicken digitization of the economy. And with the level of interoperability we have achieved, there is no reason why we cannot begin as a country to accept payments for statutory fees and taxes through mobile money and e-switch. In fact, if you heard the Minister of Finance in the budget this year, it has been stated very clearly that what the objective is that by the second quarter of next year, that is 2019, we want to be at the stage where all ministries, departments, and agencies only receive electronic payments, no more cash payments. By the second quarter of next year, we are only going to be dealing with electronic payments in the ministries, departments, and agencies. And it will really help move Ghana towards the cash-light society. Ghana is on a clear path of progress.
It's live on the marketplace now, and a Joy Business survey in collaboration with iPollGH.com on the expected impact of the 2019 budget has revealed little or no effect on the lives of the ordinary persons. 39% of the respondents on a scale of 1 to 5 gave the budget 1, which is the lowest. There's more in this Business Desk report.
The poll was put together by Joy Business in collaboration with iPollGH, a polling and research application that deploys modern mobile technology to get the citizens' views on the 2019 budget statement and its impacts on their lives. It sampled 180 respondents, with 58% of the respondents found in the Greater Accra region. Examining 10 questions related to the 2019 budget, 24% of the respondents believe the 2019 budget will not solve the fundamental questions facing the Ghanaian economy, while 21% of the respondents believe otherwise. On the main economic issue that government needs to address, 42% of the respondents believe government should deal with the unemployment situation, whilst 20% want the rising cost of goods and services to be addressed immediately. The stability of the local currency, the cedi, reducing government expenditure, the instability in the financial sector, and the budget deficit followed with 16%, 13%, 9%, and 2% respectively. As to whether the 2019 budget will leave citizens better off, the poll results reveal 22% saying yes, but 44% believe the budget will not leave them better off, while 36% are not sure whether the budget will leave them better off or not. There was a larger number of respondents who believe the budget should be shorter with less technical jargons, followed by respondents who also believe the post-budget education should be intensified.
All right, so joining me in the studio now is lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School and a lead person at IPOGH, Dr. Kobi Mensah, to tell us more about this particular survey. Now, Doc, what exactly, made you do this particular survey?
Well, let me say that it was a collaboration between ourselves and JoyNews. Okay. And predominantly what the case was that most cases we have the idea that people don't relate to the budget. People don't necessarily understand the budget provision. So we decided to scientifically test and see people's awareness. So we're looking at whether they see the budget as responding to them. They're very neat. They see whether the budget would solve the fundamental issues or would respond to the fundamental issues of the country. Okay. And again, whether they understand, the fundamentals of the budget. So these are some of the things.
So what sample size do you use, and what was the methodology?
Obviously, we had as in the report, we had about 188. Now we use a public database, a database that is very public. We send, once we load the questions on the engine, we send it across, and then people actually respond to us. Now, let me say that there is an error margin because it's technology. Okay. We need to actually make a space beyond 100%. So we have just about 102%, which is a percentage of 2. So that when people actually respond, the system won't crash. So that it would have the capacity.
Did it take into consideration the demography of these respondents?
Yeah, of course. We asked people about the age, distribution. We looked at the gender. We looked at I think gender, age, and then what do you call the business, the kind of business that they're doing.
Right. So give us a brief breakdown of this survey. How many people are saying what?
Okay, so predominantly we had men, as usual, 72%, 74% as against 27% for women. And then again, the age groupings, I think the largest age groupings were within the ages 31 to 39, and then of course the most highly educated from degree to postgraduate, certificates,
So that's a youthful age group then, 31 to 35.
Yeah, between 18 to let's say 39. That's the largest sample of the groups. And then of course we had regional distribution, predominantly Accra, let me say, and then the next was Kumasi, Ashanti region. And then it follows with, I think, Western region also. So these are the most predominant areas. Now, we asked people whether they were familiar with the budget. About 90% said that yes, they had listened to or they were aware of the
2019 budget.
Exactly, the 2019 budget. They were aware of it. And then we did ask them, how did they come to know? Predominantly, they listened to the discussions on radio. So a lot of them listened to it on TV. They watched TV. They listened to radio versions, but a lot actually followed the discussions on radio, which means that if the budget is right, the various parties and their conversations and how they spin the budget can actually have a lot of impact on people's understanding of it. So we must be careful how we actually interpret the budget when we actually discuss it after the budget has been read. All right, and then we asked people whether they were very familiar with the things, i.e. they should rate their familiarity with the specific things in the budget. I think that majority of them didn't really get to know what the budget is about. I think that our financial literacy is very low. Looking at the level of qualification, graduate, postgraduate, yet they're not that familiar with the specificities of the budget. I think that then it means the Ministry of Information must do a lot of work in terms of cascading the budget to...
When you say specificities of the budget, what exactly are the areas that you are expecting them to be familiar?
Item of the budget. Allocations to certain infrastructure. How do you, maybe tax issues, how do you think that the various tax components or proposals would affect, etc. Those specificities. A lot of people were less confident in knowing the specificities in the budget. The majority of them rated their familiarity in that sense from 4 downwards, with 5 being the highest. The highest score for 5 were just about 15. I mean, the highest within 3 versions. That is somewhat confident. We're about 28, which is quite large. So people don't really know.
So overall, how would you place it? How would you interpret this survey?
I think that first of all, a lot of people, because they understand that the financial literacy is very low, people don't really understand how the budget will impact on their life. So when you ask them, who do you think the budget will benefit, a lot of them are saying, corporate and rich people. But I'm sure there are a lot of parts of the budget that actually reflect on people's needs. Exactly, which means that the Ministry of Information, or whoever is responsible for education, has to intensify, unless of course the budget really is benefiting rich people or corporate, then of course. But I'm sure there are a lot of things that relate to people's individualities, but they are not relating to it. Budget, remember, it's a political communication issue. It's not a financial statement. So I think that governments and parties should actually learn how to communicate budget to the people, so that they can see themselves, they can actually reflect the budget very well into their own lives. And I think that's the challenge that we have.
So moving forward, what would you do with this survey, and how do you hope to impact it into maybe government or various stakeholders?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, we must understand that how we're communicating with Ghanaians and how we're making them relate to the communications that are coming from government, coming from parties. So we'll draw down more data. Obviously, it's a public document. It's on our website, ipogh.com. If you go on, and I'm sure it's on JoyNews as well, because you guys have hosted it. And if you go onto our app, that is the Play Store, you can download the ipogh and then register, so that the series of research that we do, you can have access to it. And I'm sure that by doing this, the public can have a fair idea of what other Ghanaians are thinking, because we keep supposing, we keep bringing suppositions, we keep conjecturing, but now we have the tool to be able to research the broader population, how they're thinking and what they're thinking about. And I'm sure it can help us improve our conversations.
Many thanks for your time, Dr.
Kobe
Mensah. He's a lead person at IPOGH, which conducted a survey on the 2019 budget. Now, away from that, over the past decade, Ghana's aviation sector has grown by about 8% annually. In 2017, total international passengers passing through both the arrivals and departure halls of the Kotoka International Airport was 1.8 million. But experts say Ghana could rake in much more revenue if it had its own national airline. So how much cash is the country actually losing out as a result of not having a state-owned airline? Sandra Esinamapenu takes a look at some African countries whose economic successes have been largely attributed to their vibrant aviation industries.
In Africa, air transport supports 6.8 million jobs and $72.5 billion of the continent's GDP annually. Statistics have indicated that airline businesses in Africa is growing as more countries are pushing to have their own national air carriers. As at the end of 2017, the European Aeronautic Defence and Space Company Airbus received 261 orders from African countries for their own aircrafts, with 28 new operators adding up to the existing number. And as the world's second largest in terms of population, experts say air transport in Africa will massively increase from 1.2 billion in 2006 to 1.68 billion by 2030. Experts say tourism in Africa will massively increase in the next 15 years from 52 million in 2012 to 134 million in 2030 and expected to multiply by 10 in 40 years, hence the need for African countries to pay attention to the aviation industry. Already, some African countries are making huge gains from having national airlines. A typical example is the exportation of rose flowers in East Africa. In 2014, Zambia made $14 million from rose exportation. Ethiopia exported over $154 million in 2014, while Kenya's went up to the tune of $326 million same year. These three countries provided more jobs than the mining industry, translating into $225 million in 2016 to $820 million in 2017. Several other African countries, including Ethiopia, Zambia, Togo, Seychelles, Mauritius and Côte d'Ivoire benefiting greatly from the aviation industries. Tourist arrival per year in Togo, for instance, is said to have more than tripled from 50,000 in 1995 to 350,000 in 2015 since the creation of Togo National Airline. Just 5 years after the creation of Air Côte d'Ivoire, tourist arrival also doubled from 800,000 in 1990 to 220 million in 2017. Direct impact of tourism on Mauritius' economy as a result of having a national airline was 45,500, representing 8.2% of total employment, with a total of 135,000 jobs created same year. The story of Seychelles is not different, with just a population of 95,235. 22.0% of Seychelles' GDP is generated from the tourism industry. This is because the country has invested in having a national airline, which has translated into jobs, employing a total of 29,000 in the hospitality industry. After the collapse of the national airline in 2010, Ghana has been without a national carrier. Free boarding passes, mismanagement and government interference with operations were among several other factors said to have led to the collapse of the hitherto vibrant Ghana Airways. After several postponements of the launch of a new national airline, many say it's about time Ghana sees the aviation sector as key to its economic growth.
The way forward would be for governments to really understand and appreciate that aviation is an economic enabler, and that if you want to generate a little money from aviation, you will be doing so at the expense of bigger bucks coming into the country. Because for every tourist that come into the country, the tourist will take a taxi, the tourist will stay in a hotel, the tourist will eat in a restaurant, he will probably shop, and he'll probably go to other places of attraction. All of these places will pay taxes. So you're going to get more money if more tourists are coming into the country.
So far, 2 deadlines for the relaunch of...
And on that beautiful expose on the aviation industry by Sandra Isinamapenu, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. Many thanks for watching. For more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Emmanuel Aboaji. If you have a good afternoon.